else, or simply my brother and I, that was our chime. Every time in the wintertime, winter's finally gone for us, I hope, but in the wintertime, we would take our toboggan and we would go up to this giant hill, and we'd say, "Are you ready?" Because it was in the woods. And so, so those times when you ask, "Are you ready?" It's not always something you want to be ready for. However, this morning we're going to be talking about something a little bit different there. The idea of being ready spiritually. Being ready spiritually. I'm not going to read all of this because it was just read, but I do want to point out a couple of different things. In the beginning here, as Jesus comes to the crowd, I want to set the stage a little bit. He crosses over the Sea of Galilee and he gets to the other side, and he gets out and there's a crowd forming around him already. I don't know about you, but if you look at the context of this, okay. Jesus spent the morning casting out legion into the pigs that ran down the hill and were drowned. Okay, he was doing that all morning. Then I looked it up. He at least took a 2-hour sailing trip across the Sea of Galilee. All right, and then he gets out and there's this huge crowd. Now, how many of you ever get tired? Right? Okay. All the kids are going, "No way, I never get tired." But everybody over the age of 20 is going, "Yeah, I need some rest." Right? All right, so, we have a problem with always being ready. We have this issue with always being ready. Jesus has all these things that are going on in his life. And actually just all these things that are going on in that day. I couldn't imagine doing the things that Jesus did. And yet, as soon as he gets out, he's met by that crowd, and someone approaches him. Falls at his feet. And Jairus says, "My daughter is sick. Can you please come heal her?" There are times in my life, I don't like to admit, but there's times in my life I don't want to help somebody. It happens. We get tired. We get overworked. We get, things happen like that. There are times in your life that you just want, what's the catchphrase nowadays? Me time, right? We need me time. Anybody ever use that phrase? I've never used that phrase, to be honest with you. But, that phrase, we need some me time, or I need some me time. We live in a very selfish world, unfortunately. And so when we look at that, we need to understand that Jesus here, even though he spent the morning casting out demons, even though he spent the rest of the morning, early afternoon, whatever it is, traveling by sea all the way across the Sea of Galilee, when he gets out and he meets that crowd, he is ready. He is ready. I want to say that the things that he is ready for, Jesus is number one, he is ready to save. Jairus comes to him, falls down at his feet, and he says, "All right, let's go." There's no hesitation there. There's no hesitation at all. He is ready to save. And I think the second reason is just as important, and it combines with the first, and that's he is ready to serve. When we think about this and we think about our own lives, are we always ready to serve? Are we always ready to serve? That's a question you have to answer for yourself. There's no one else can actually do that. The people are gathered around, the people are waiting for us to serve, and are we ready to serve? Jesus is ready. He's ready to save, he's ready to serve. But I wanted to say one more thing, though, with this. The people also are ready for a change. All the saving and all the serving that Jesus does, he finds people that have needs, have real needs. Jairus didn't come there just on a whim. Jairus didn't come there because, he thought, "Hey, I've got no other alternative. Might as well try this one out." No, he goes there because he knows. He's heard who Jesus is, and he knows the power that Jesus has. And he's ready for a change in his life. He doesn't want his daughter to die. He is ready for Jesus to enter into his life. We've got to be understanding of that. We need to understand that we need to be people who are ready for that type of change in our lives also. We need to be ready to serve. We need to be ready to change. We need to be ready to truly show everyone around us that we are ready. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come to him and eat with him, and he with me. Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. It's more than just being ready, but Jesus is ready for us at all times. But it's more than that. It's a little bit more.
We also need to be willing. You know, I was just thinking about this morning when I was sitting, when we were singing. I was about 14 years old, and I was coming back from a scouting activity, and we had canoed for 20 miles, and then we had to bring the canoes and put them onto into trailers and take them back to where they'd come from. And so we had to get them from the one side of the river to the other side where we were picking them up, where we had the trailers. And we started going across, and there'd be one guy on the front of the canoe and one guy on the back. We're just swimming across with these canoes. Would be a normally easy activity, except that there was a huge current and a big wind that day, and there was a whirlpool that had developed in the middle. And we were moving across there, and the guy in front of me, the front of the canoe, was a much stronger swimmer than I was, and he jerked when he pulled it, and he pulled me loose from the canoe. I reached, but it was gone, and I was right in the middle of this whirlpool. And it sucked me down immediately, but I fought my way back up, and it sucked me down again. And I fought my way back up, and I was near the surface. I remember I was hazy. I wasn't sure what was happening at this stage. I had taken in quite a bit of water. And what was going on the shore, I found out later, is everybody was standing on the shore watching this take place. Nobody wanted to go out into that current because they didn't want to get sucked down. Later, the scoutmaster told me I couldn't have swum through that current myself, and I'm a good swimmer. So they didn't know what to do. But one guy had rushed into the woods and got this long branch and brought it out, and he said, we need to push the branch out to him so he can grab hold of it. This is all taking place while I'm going up and down in the whirlpool. And so they all stood there. I don't know how long they stood there. It seemed like an eternity of me where I was, but one guy picked up the branch and pushed it out to me, and it was that branch that my flailing hands, as I was going down that third time, got hold of, and I gripped it, and he began to pull me in. And I was told later by somebody that he pulled me in entirely by himself while 20 people stood on the side. They were all there. They were all ready, but only one guy was willing. Now, I understand fear and a lot of things. They just were in shock. But there was an example of people being ready and being able, but not being willing. If we're not willing, not much else matters, does it? So, when we look at this story that we've been reading here in Mark chapter 5, it takes me back to Mark chapter 1. In Mark 1:40 and 41, there's this leper that comes to Jesus, and he beseeches him, falls on his knees before him, and says, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I am willing, be cleansed. Wasn't that man grateful that Jesus was willing? It's evident here that he doesn't doubt Jesus' ability. And he doesn't doubt that Jesus is there and ready, but what he wants to know is Jesus willing? So when we talk about willingness, we look at this, what does it really mean? And it means this. This is what it means. It means inclined or favorably disposed in mind, willing and eager to help, prompt to act or respond, lending a willing hand. Is that who you are? Is that who we are as a people? I have to tell you, I was impressed with the workday yesterday. I really was. In the early part of it, it was looking a little iffy, all right? We looked around, and there was a handful of us, and I was thinking, wow, we're in big trouble, because I'm not really able to do much of anything, all right? I'm willing, and I've got physical ability to do, but I don't have the skill set to do a lot of handy stuff around a building like this. So I was looking for things that didn't take a lot of skill sets. But eventually, we must have had, 50 people or something. We had a huge number of people here, and everybody working hand in hand, and an incredible amount got done because people were willing. In Mark chapter 5, Jesus is surrounded with this great crowd, and he goes off, he went off with him, and a large crowd is following him and pressing in on him. A woman who had had a hemorrhage for 12 years, who had endured much at the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had and was not helped at all, but rather had grown worse. After hearing about Jesus, she came up in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak, for she thought, if I just touch his garments, I will get well. This passage is my favorite miracle, and it moves me because of the desperation of this woman, and how needy she is. But keep in mind, and this is the first thing I want to talk about, is we're surrounded by needs. You're going to go out and look for a need. You're going to find lots of needs, all right? And so what do you do? What do you do when you have all these needs surrounding you? Where do you go when you have all these needs surrounding you? And like Don said, we get tired. I know I get tired. And sometimes, like Don said, I'm not, Don said he doesn't want to help people. I always want to help people, but I don't want to kid you. No, but, it's a difference between even though we may not feel like it, we're willing, okay? But that willingness, it gets hard, doesn't it? When you're surrounded by needs. And I don't know what your schedule is like, but I know mine's full, and we get tired, and there are needs all around us. And we get what I call compassion fatigue. There's just too many things that are calling on your compassion and saying, help me, help me, help me. And so you're so tired that you almost become numb to it. And think about Jesus. Of anyone who should have become numb to that, it would have been Jesus. Pressed in by crowds everywhere he went. How many times do you read in the scripture where he came in from praying and he runs into a crowd? He finishes this crowd from morning until night healing, and then he goes out to pray. All right? So what a schedule he has. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. Somehow, we just got to summon the strength, summon the energy. In the midst of the crowd, summon the energy to be willing to help. Because if we don't, those needs won't be met. Reading on in Mark chapter 5:29, immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Immediately Jesus, perceiving in himself that the power proceeding from him had gone forth, turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my garment? And his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. I wish I could have been there, because I think this is really one of the funny stories in the gospel. Can you just see that? There's a whole crowd pressing in on him, and he's trying to make his way through the crowd, and he goes, who touched me? And the disciples looked at him like he's touched. What in the world, who touched you? Of course, everybody touched you. That's who touched you. But Jesus feels something different in the touch of this woman. And that's what I want to talk about just for a second is, how do you identify that need in the middle of need? How do you identify that need? How do you know in all the needs of your schedule every day? And those of us who have family, you got family needs. Those are big needs. Those are important needs. You've got work needs. right? And then you have, needs of your community. Sometimes a neighbor comes over or somebody comes over, they need this, and your family needs this, and work needs this. How do you decide what is the need that has to be met at the moment? I was talking to Don about it yesterday. I decided that I've struggled with this. We all know there are homeless people, right? Does everybody know there are homeless people in Albany? Okay? And I could I could go down there and just deal with homeless people all day. But then there's other needs. But if God brings a homeless person to my door, that's what I call an opportunity. And I'm going to have to stop what I'm doing and deal with that need. And there's a lot of situations like that. I was talking to Don the other day about, we've had like 6 young ladies who were not married that got pregnant that have interacted with us, and all of them have at some point or time stayed in our house. And there's how many million pregnant young ladies do you think are out there that aren't married? But we only dealt with the ones that were in our house. Because those are opportunities that God put at our doorstep that we needed to meet those needs. So, when God presents an opportunity to you, we were talking about the other day, we need to be praying for opportunities. And when God presents that opportunity, we need to be willing. We need to be ready. I mean, Jesus is ready. He's in the middle of this crowd, and somehow this need stands out. Now, I read this story, and I can't imagine. This woman's been bleeding for 12 years, and everything that she owns has been spent on physicians, and they haven't been able to help her. And after 12 years, she hears about Jesus. She is probably, I like this picture, because she's probably crawling through the crowd to get to his cloak. She's not the kind of person anybody would notice. In fact, she's trying not to be noticed. She just wants to touch his garment in hopes that she'll be healed. So, when I think about this, I look at her and I think, what opportunities has God brought to my door? What opportunities has God brought to your door? I don't mean it has to be actually your doorstep. It might be at work. It might be anywhere. But what has he brought to your attention? Because there's needs all around us. You know that. And you get up every day and go to work and come home from work and do things with your family and go to bed and get up and go to work every day. But what needs does God bring to your attention? And are we willing when that opportunity comes? In Mark 5:33 and 34, it says the woman was fearing and trembling, aware of what had happened to her. She came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." And this is about meeting the need. About just meeting the need. Being ready and being willing to find that need that God has placed in your life and meet it. And we're able to do beyond, exceedingly above and beyond what we believe we can, because God lives in us. And so we need to be willing to respond and to meet that need. But to meet that need in a way that honors our God. In Matthew 5, verse 16, he says, "Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven." To meet that need in a way that shines on God. And as 1 Peter 2:9 says, proclaims the excellencies of him who called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. I'd like to challenge all of us this week as we go out, whether it's to work in our neighborhood or even just with our families. He says, conduct yourself with wisdom towards outsiders, making the most of the opportunity. Make the most of the opportunities that God brings you, whatever those may be. Make the most. Pray about it before you go out, and then make the most of the opportunities God gives you. And believe, trust that God's going to give you opportunity and meet those needs. But remember this, because God is able. We can only do what we're able to with God's help, and that's what Don's going to talk about right now. Sure.
He is able. And in the story, as we continue the story here, Jairus gets word after this miracle with the woman that was bleeding. He gets word that his daughter has died. I don't know what that would be like as he was trying his very best to have the Lord come and to save her. But I do know this: Jairus is about to get way more than he ever bargained for, because the fact of the matter is, he is able to do above and beyond anything we can ever ask, think, or even imagine. Jairus comes to Jesus asking, "Can you heal my daughter? She's sick. She's sick. She isn't dead yet. She's sick. Please come and heal my daughter." But Jairus gets more than that, because when Jesus goes and shows up and he removes the mourners as they laugh at him, and he goes up into that room with the mother and the father and his three closest disciples, he goes up there and he gives them more than they've ever bargained for. Because no longer is he just going to heal the sick, but now he's going to revive the dead. And so he goes up and he revives this little girl. You see, I think one of the things that we need to realize is that God can do anything, anything at all. There's nothing that God is not able to do. In 2 Corinthians 9:8, it says, "And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work." You see, because God is able, we are able. I think that's incredible. As we, I want you to think about that this morning also, is that our abilities as Christians, our abilities to reach out to those needs that Kerry was just talking about, our abilities to overcome the things in our lives, our abilities to lead a Christian life, to be spiritual people, is not based upon anything that you can learn or do. It's based upon God's ability to do that. God is the one who is able. God is the one who gives us the ability to do great things. God's ability comes from his all-knowing. God's ability comes from sending his son Jesus to understand us. And God is able to do all things. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, I think that God understands his creation. That's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. If you build something, I used to be an engineer, and we would make plans, and we would do R&D, and we would put things together, and when it was all together, you looked at it and you said, "I've made that. That's what we came up with. That's it." And you knew the ins and outs of it. You didn't pull somebody off the street and say, "Hey, could you explain how this was put together?" It doesn't work that way. You go to the person who actually put it together. God understands his creation because he's the one who put it together. And so he understands the struggles that we go through, and he understands the problems that we have, and he understands the lives that we lead and the busyness that we get into. But he gives us the ability. He gives us the ability to overcome all those things. He gives us the ability to overcome everything in our lives because he has that ability. There was a riddle which has been around, I don't even know how long. It's been a long, long time. But the riddle goes something like this. What is greater than God, more evil than the devil? The poor have it, the rich don't need it, and if you eat it, you'll die. I'm going to read that one more time because some of you look like, what? What is greater than God, more evil than the devil? The poor have it, the rich don't need it, and if you eat it, you'll die. Everybody got that answer? Now, let me just, before I say anything, I do want you to know that 80% of kindergartners actually get this. Okay? But not 80% of adults. The answer's nothing. The answer's nothing. Okay? What is greater than God? Nothing. And that's my point this morning. We need to understand that the abilities that we have, that we are given, are from God. Should we limit the things that we do? No, because our ability is given by God. Should we be, let me rephrase that. Should we be afraid and limit ourselves because we're afraid? No, because our abilities are from God. We are given those God-given abilities, and we are ready to use them. God knows his creation, he knows us, and he knows we need him. We just need to understand that we need him. God also understands exactly, he knows what we need. Whether we know it or not, I like that part. Because when I pray to God, there's certain times when I pray and I pray for specific things, and God either doesn't give me those specific things or gives me something totally different. Anybody ever have that happen before? Gives you something totally different. You go, whoa. I had a round hole, and I asked for a round peg, and you gave me a square one. How's this going to work? I'm not sure. But God makes it work. God makes it work because he is able. And so Jairus finds this out immediately as he goes and he gets more than he ever bargained for. So today we're asking that question. And that question is, are you understanding what it means to be ready, willing, and able? If we understand ready, willing, and able, if we really understood this concept of ready, willing, and able, as Jesus was here in these two miracles, as Christians, we'd be unstoppable. We would be absolutely unstoppable. We would live our lives the right way if we understood this. We would live our lives the right way. We would be out there teaching people, spreading the gospel of Jesus every single day if we understood that we need to be ready, willing, and able. Because if we understood this, then we understand that we have a God that can do absolutely anything. He can work through anyone. He can control nature. He can revive life. And he can even change people's hearts. Does that sound like a God that is limited? And if we are examples of his, and we are his people here on earth that he is using to spread his word, does that sound like we are limited in any way? He chose to work through us. That's amazing to me. With all the things that are wrong with each and every one of us, because there's definitely something wrong with each and every one of us. Some more than others, myself included in that. But even with the things that I have done to make my life imperfect, he still uses me. And even though we fall short of the glory of God, Romans chapter 3, we know that he still uses us. If our God is willing to use us, no matter what the situation is, no matter whether we're tired or whether we have some other excuse, then the simple matter is that we need to be ready, willing, and able. And the other thing is that we should have no more excuses when it comes to our Christian lives. It's as simple as that. There are no excuse that you can have. If we learn anything from these two miracles, we know there's no excuses. Jesus was ready, willing, and able. We need to be ready, willing, and able. Excuse me. We need to be ready, willing, and able. And we need to understand something else. One last thing. One last thing, and that is this. We only have to worry about two of them. We just discussed the fact The fact is that Jesus makes us able. God gives us the abilities that we need. So that doesn't help me out when it comes to excuses. Does it help you out? I mean, if God gives us the ability for this ready, willing, and able, that just leaves ready and willing. That's where we need to be. So our question today is this simple. It's very simple. Are you ready? Are you willing? Because through him, you are able. We're a family of God brought together here every week to answer that call, being ready, willing, and able. We are brought here also to let everyone know around us that you are loved by God, and we want to encourage people. We want to encourage you to lift each other up. We should all go out here feeling unstoppable every week because we have a God that is great, because we have a God that loves us so dearly. But if you don't know that God, if you have not come to an understanding of what it means to be a Christian, we can help you with that. Or maybe you have fallen short on being ready and willing, and you need the prayers of this congregation. Whatever your need is this morning, we are here to meet needs. Just as Jesus was in that crowd to meet needs, just as he met the needs of Jairus and his family and his daughter, just as he met the needs of the woman who was bleeding for 12 years, Jesus is here to meet your needs today. So if you need anything this morning, please come as we stand and sing.